Sagittarius, there are secrets, not hidden in the dark, but lying quietly in the eyes of someone who once called you family. There is a woman who has always been there, close, gentle, even loving you with a smile. But in the moments you succeeded, when you shined, her heart couldn't rejoice with you. And the most terrifying part is, she doesn't want you to see this truth. Not because she's afraid you'll be hurt, but because she knows once you see it clearly, you won't stay. Today is not a random day. It is a moment God placed in His divine plan. The moment when you are finally strong enough to see what your soul once wasn't ready to hold. He kept this hidden, not to punish you, but to protect you. And now, as the light inside you begins to rise, truth will no longer stay buried. You are standing at the threshold of an entirely new chapter, where you are no longer bound by what was never truly yours. Right below, if you're ready, I am strong enough to see the truth and to receive the sacred destiny meant for me. One comment is a declaration to your soul and to the universe itself. Sagittarius is ready. But this is only the first doorway, because what I'm about to share next, Sagittarius, may change the way you see that woman forever. Have you ever felt it? The gaze of someone in your family, soft on the surface, but making you shrink inside without knowing why? Not because they yelled at you, not because they said cruel words, but because, in their silence, you started to doubt your own worth. Because when you glowed, their eyes dimmed. Sagittarius, you're not imagining things. Your soul felt it long before your mind could explain it, because you were born with an intuition as sharp as fire and a heart like a sacred compass, always pointing toward truth. Maybe it was your mother. Maybe it was the aunt you once trusted, or the sister you looked up to. They once held you in their arms, they once wiped away your tears, but they also at times planted something unspoken inside you. Guilt for simply being yourself. And do you know what hurts the most? It's not that they hated you, but that they lost connection with their own light. A long, long time ago. So when you started to shine, their pain woke up. Not all light is welcomed in the home, especially when that light comes from someone brave enough to break expectations. I want you to know this from the heart of someone who has listened to thousands of birth charts. When the moon in a Sagittarius chart forms a square with Pluto, it reveals something profoundly deep. There is a woman in your bloodline who once carried a deep wound, and instead of healing it, she passed it down. Not through words, but through her gaze, through her expectations, through the kind of control disguised as love. You were born for freedom. But have you ever asked yourself, why does your heart tighten with guilt every time you try to leave? I've seen it too many times, and the answer is never simple. Because when a Sagittarius is chosen to break the family pattern, you are not just called to leave physically. You are called to step out of the false beliefs programmed into you since childhood. There's a life lesson I once recorded after speaking with a Sagittarius woman in her 60s. She was the first in her family to leave a rigid religious town to live freely on the other side of the country. But for decades, every time she succeeded, the only person who never congratulated her was her own mother. Not because her mother didn't love her, but because inside that mother's heart, there was a dream that had long been abandoned, and the daughter who dared to live her dream became a mirror no one wanted to look into. Do you feel something waking up in you, Sagittarius? A memory, a moment when you didn't feel safe, even in your own home? If you do, don't ignore it. Because when you start looking at truth without defending against it, you are offering your soul the liberation your ancestors once prayed for. Right beneath this video, I no longer ask for permission to be happy. This is not just an affirmation. It is a decoding of ancestral energy, where you, Sagittarius, are rewriting history with light. And if you feel this touches your heart, share this video so others too may be freed from the shadows of conditional love. I want to leave you with a question, one that may take a lifetime to fully answer, but only a moment to begin your healing. Are you staying in a place, not because you belong there, but because you're afraid that if you leave, you'll have no one left? And if your answer is yes, stay. Because what I'm about to say next will explain why your light is the very reason they tried to hide the truth from you. Because once you see it clearly, no one will ever be able to keep you in a place that's not yours again. Sagittarius, sometimes You don't even have to do anything. Just your presence alone makes someone in your family uncomfortable. You didn't insult them, you didn't take anything from them, but the light in you makes the shadows in them impossible to ignore. I know it's hard to understand, and even harder to accept, when the light you bring is not celebrated, but questioned, criticized, even made to feel like something to apologize for. But if you've ever felt this way, if there's a woman in your family who always made you shrink, made you tone it down, told you to be less dreamy, then please hear me. From the heart of someone who's read hundreds of Sagittarius souls, you are not wrong, you are just different. And your soul is a torch. Someone once said, a torch does not hurt anyone, but when it passes through a dark room, it reveals all the dust. And you, Sagittarius, were born for that. Not to shame anyone, but to shine. And not everyone is ready to face the light. In the birth chart of many Sagittarians, I often see a small but powerful planet, Chiron. It doesn't blaze like Jupiter, it doesn't dominate like Pluto, but it carries a wound that you've brought from a past life. A wound you were born to heal, not just for yourself, but for your entire bloodline. Do you know what makes that wound ache more than anything? It's when the person who hurt you is the one you call family. No one says it out loud, no one admits it, but you feel it. In the sad glance when you do something different, in the hesitant hug when you return from a successful journey. I once spoke with a Sagittarius woman in her 40s. Everyone in her family worked in education, but she chose to travel the world, work freely, and serve her community. Every time she called home, her mother would say, "I just wish you'd settle down, stop wandering, why chase something so far away?" And she knew, deep down, this wasn't just concern, it was a gentle way to make her question herself. Because she had chosen to live truthfully, and that made others around her confront the parts of themselves they had long denied. Maybe you are like her. Maybe you are the only one in your family who dares to speak of the sacred, to ask questions, to walk away, to love someone outside of expectations, to leave a place that no longer nourishes your soul. And that inner freedom made you into something they cannot control. You know something? In astrology, Sagittarius is the sign of enlightenment, ruled by Jupiter, the planet of truth, belief, and soul expansion. And that means you weren't born just to live for yourself. You were born to open the path, to be the first one who sees the invisible wall left behind by your ancestors and walks right through it. But in order to heal, you must look directly at the one who hurt you. Not to blame, but to understand exactly what you are healing. You cannot heal a wound if you keep calling it nothing. You cannot lead others into the light if you're still afraid of your own. Right below this video, I accept my light, even if someone else cannot understand it. Because that comment is not for others to read. It is for the universe to witness that you have stopped denying yourself. And if these words touch your heart, share this video so that someone out there, still afraid of their own difference, can find courage too. Because no one should be made to feel wrong for simply being real. Now, Sagittarius, be still for a moment. Close your eyes. And remember the last time you had to shrink yourself because your light made someone else uncomfortable. Do you remember? That face, that room, that feeling? I'm not telling you to confront them. I'm asking you to reclaim the light you've been hiding for years. Because what I'm about to say next is not easy to hear, but it is the key to freeing yourself from a cycle where you've had to ask permission just to be true to yourself. There's something very few people ever say out loud. That the first person who made you question yourself wasn't a stranger. It was someone you once called by the most familiar names: mom, sister, aunt, family. Not everyone hurts you with violence. Some use silence, glances, or quiet disappointment to slowly erode the confidence in your soul. And the deepest pain for a Sagittarius is not being misunderstood. It's having to dim your own light just to meet someone else's expectations. Do you remember the first time you were compared? When you did something different and someone said, "You should be more like your cousin. Stop dreaming nonsense like that." You were just a child. But from that day on, you started learning how to suppress your brilliance just to hear a single word: good. I once wrote this about a Sagittarius soul nearing 50. She wasn't rebelling to reject her family. She simply couldn't keep pretending she was happy in a box that was far too small. As a child, she was obsessed with books about the universe, about other worlds, about life beyond the boundaries of the mind. But her mother, a deeply religious, conservative woman, repeated only one phrase: all you need is to get married, have children, and live peacefully. And so she tried. She married, had children, quietly stepped away from her own light, just to earn a few hollow compliments and live in a room full of silence where no one really saw her. I know, you may see yourself in that story, and if you do, let me tell you this, from the deepest respect for your journey, you did not fail to be loved, they failed to see you. Sagittarius carries the energy of exploration, freedom, and truth. And that often means you were born into a family that didn't know how to receive it. They weren't bad. They just didn't know how to hold something as vast as your soul. So they did the only thing they knew. They tried to shrink you to fit inside their limited beliefs. And here comes the hardest part. Emotional manipulation in families doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it sounds like, have you thought about how your mother feels? You're embarrassing the whole family. Why can't you be more like? Each phrase, a tiny blade, gently slicing away at the trust you had in yourself. Not deep enough to scream, but just enough to make you wonder, am I really wrong? And so you walk through life with a quiet contradiction. On one hand, you long to live truthfully, but on the other, you carry guilt for being exactly who you are. Write this below the video if you're ready to break free from that invisible chain. I no longer trade the truth in my heart, just to stay in a place that no longer nourishes me. Because you don't need permission to live in truth. You don't need to prove anything to be valid. You don't have to shrink, just so someone else doesn't feel lacking beside you. And now, there's a question I want you to hold close to your heart as we move forward. You don't need to answer it right away. Just let it live inside you, like a quiet awakening. If you must betray your truth just to hold on to something called family, then is that still truly family? And if that question leaves you breathless, then keep listening, Sagittarius, because next you will understand why the universe has always protected you from that energy, and why the loneliness you once endured was not punishment, but a sacred choice made in heaven. Do you remember how many times in your life you sat alone in the dark, your hands trembling, your heart whispering a question with no words? Why was I born here? And you prayed, not in the way religion teaches us, but a quiet, desperate murmur from the bottom of your soul only you and God heard. Please save me. If I mean anything in this world, please give me a sign. And you thought that prayer was lost in silence. But it wasn't. In that very moment, when your head sank into the pillow, when your eyes were too dry to cry, that was when the angels intervened. Because the universe never looks away from a soul on the edge. Especially not a soul of light. Like yours, Sagittarius, you thought you were abandoned, but the truth is, you were being hidden, to be protected. In tarot, there are two cards that always move me when I pull them for a Sagittarius in healing. Temperance, your card, and the star, the symbol of hope after the longest night. Temperance is not just a picture of an angel pouring water between two cups. It is a metaphor for the balance between your soul and divine guidance. A gentle reminder, you don't need to rush, you don't need to prove, because you were chosen not to live an easy life, but a meaningful one. And the star, it always arrives when it feels like everything is over. It doesn't promise fireworks, but it whispers, I see you, you are not alone. Take one more step, the light is waiting. Now, astrologically, there's something I want you to hear. If your Jupiter is retrograde in the 4th house, the house of family, home, roots, that doesn't mean you're unwanted. It doesn't say you don't deserve a safe place to belong. It simply means you were not born to stay in the place you were raised. You don't fit the old ground because your soul was made to fly beyond it. That soil isn't wide enough for your wings, not bright enough for your fire. And sometimes the universe has to make you feel lonely in your own home, just to give you the courage to leave. Write this down below. I am not abandoned. I am being led to where I truly belong. And if this speaks to your soul, don't hesitate to share the video. Maybe someone out there feels lost in the middle of their own family, and these words will become the star that helps them take that next step. Because the most beautiful things have never lived in the past. They're waiting for you, on the other side of pain, where angels are already paving the road for the Sagittarius who finally finds what home truly means. Not by blood, but by the resonance of souls. Tell me, have you ever felt like a strange heaviness was following you? A tightness in your chest you couldn't explain, even when there was no visible sadness? Just a normal day. And after a few conversations with family, you felt drained, as if someone had sucked the life out of you. That wasn't your imagination. It wasn't weakness. It was the first sign that someone was quietly pulling light from your soul. And it breaks my heart to say this, but sometimes the most distorted prayers are whispered from inside your own family. Not prayers for your happiness, but secret wishes rooted in jealousy. I hope she doesn't succeed too much. I hope he struggles enough to come running back to us. I hope life teaches her a lesson. Some people don't need curses. Their quiet, repeated envy is already enough to weave an energy cloud that suffocates your light. But here's what they didn't expect: that your soul was chosen long before you were born. You carry sacred light, a brilliance they could never reach. So instead of learning to shine with you, they tried to smother your fire. But you know what? Real light can't be extinguished. It only waits for the right moment to rise when all darkness has shown its true face. And in astrology, there is a sacred law, the law of energetic return, also called karmic echo. Whatever you send out, blessing or poison, will always find its way back. If they cursed you, they will be haunted by fear, failure, and emotional silence. If they sowed hatred, loneliness will bloom in their own garden, not because you seek revenge, but because the universe always balances what it sees. If you've ever felt like someone in your own family is slowly draining your energy, write this below the video. I no longer carry what was never mine to hold. Because those words are your soul's declaration, that you are releasing every energy that clung to you, not through love, but through control. And if this speaks to your heart, share this video with someone who's trying to survive inside familiar relationships by constantly wearing a mask just to feel safe. Because the truth is, they thought you were weak. But they never realized you were born to stand, you were born to rise, you were born to reach for something no one else dared to claim. Freedom. And now, Sagittarius, take a deep breath, because what I'm about to say doesn't require you to do anything. Except for one thing: let go. There are wounds you've never spoken of, not because you forgot, but because you're too tired to revisit them. And there are people you're no longer angry at, not because they changed, but because your heart is too exhausted to keep bleeding for a wound that never healed. Sagittarius, you carry a kind of nobility that few can understand. Even when you're hurt, you try to understand why others did what they did to you. You ask yourself, maybe they were hurting too. Maybe they didn't mean to. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. And that is your beauty, but also your silent fracture, especially if you have Sagittarius or Pisces rising. You don't forgive because you're soft. You forgive because you can't bear the idea of anyone feeling unloved, even if you're the one they're hurting. I've seen so many Sagittarians carrying old scars and still walking through life with gentle eyes, open hands, and the hope that one day someone will finally understand their heart. But today, I want to tell you something. You cannot heal a family line by bleeding yourself dry. No one is saved when you are the only one suffering. Forgiveness is not acceptance of the wrong. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting what they did. Because forgiveness does not erase memory, it severs the cord that binds you to a past that no longer fits. You don't need revenge. You don't need them to understand. You don't need them to apologize. Because freedom does not come from someone else's confession. It comes from your own decision. I will not carry this for one more day. And when you forgive them, without needing them to change, without needing them to see your pain, without waiting for them to come back and make it right, you are reclaiming your soul's power. If your heart resonates with every word, write this below the video. I do not forgive them for their peace, I forgive them for mine. And if this is true for you, share this video with someone who's holding a wound like yours, so they can finally know they have permission to stop. Because healing doesn't begin by changing the people who hurt you. It begins the moment you choose yourself. The moment you place your hand on your heart and say, I am enough, I deserve peace, even if no one ever apologizes to me. That is what I want you to carry as we move forward toward a door that's finally opening. Into a life where you no longer need to shrink just to be loved. You've known this for a while. There's something in your life, rotting from the inside out. A relationship, a habit, a place called family. But deep down, you no longer feel like you belong there. And you know, you need to leave. But you stay, not because you're afraid, but because some part of you still hopes that maybe, if you're just a little more patient, things will change. So I want to ask you, with gentleness and honesty, what is it that you know you need to let go of, but still hold on to, because you're afraid of the pain? You don't need to answer right now. Just be honest with yourself. Because sometimes we hold on to things that are already dead, simply because we're afraid to hurt again. But here's a truth you can't outrun. If you don't walk away on your own, God will start collapsing everything around you until you're forced to. Jupiter, your ruling planet, Sagittarius, when it moves into the 12th house of your birth chart, it doesn't bring comfort. It brings sacred isolation. You may start to feel disconnected from places you once loved, from people you once felt at home with, even from the version of yourself from just yesterday. But this is also the time of spiritual rebirth, when everything that no longer belongs to your soul's mission is stripped away. The silence of the 12th house is not punishment. It's the moment the universe closes the door so it can crown you in secret. But before you can wear that crown, you must remove the mask that family, society, and trauma have placed on your face. You are no longer who they once knew. And that is a good thing. Write this down. I no longer avoid the truth. I step forward to live as my soul. Because that declaration is your first step out of the old room of fear. And if this feels true for you, share this video with another soul still stuck in silence. Because you never know, sometimes, one sentence is all it takes to save someone from something they thought was normal. You were not born to repeat the cycle. You were born to break it open. And that new life is still waiting for you just beyond the door. The door is not locked. You just have to be the one brave enough to turn the handle first. So, Sagittarius, what I'm about to tell you next is no longer about the past. It's about the ending of a painful cycle and the sacred beginning made just for you. Sagittarius, maybe you've asked, why does it all stop with me? Why am I the first to step out, to ask questions, to refuse to fit in? Why do I always feel like I was born, but not really meant to belong here? And now, I'm going to tell you a truth that not everyone is brave enough to hear. You are not the rebellious child. You are the one chosen to break a generational curse. In astrology, if Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth, sits in your 8th or 12th house, it reveals a sacred soul assignment to end a cycle of pain that those before you accepted as fate. You're not only carrying your own wounds, you are living in the emotional patterns your grandmother, your mother, were never allowed to speak of. Just stay quiet. Family comes first. We all have to sacrifice. You were raised in a system where love was entangled with duty, and silence was mistaken for peace. But your soul didn't come here to continue that. You came to end it, and to begin something entirely new. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will support you, but that doesn't matter. Because pioneers don't need permission, they only need integrity. I want you to imagine yourself as Moses leading his people through the desert. He wasn't born to live in a palace. He was called because a people needed to be free. And he accepted exile, so that the generation after him would never again live in chains, just like you. You weren't born to be pleasing. You were born to break things and rebuild them in the light. If something is stirring inside you right now, write this below the video. I am the one chosen to heal my bloodline. And I am ready. Because when you write that, the universe will mark the beginning of a new era. And if you see yourself in every word I've spoken, share this video with someone else who's quietly carrying a pain that was never theirs to hold. You are not alone. You are the forerunner, and those who come after will walk easier because you were brave enough to blaze the trail. Thank you, a courageous soul, for listening all the way to this very moment. If what I've said today touches your heart, then perhaps this was not a coincidence, but a divine appointment. Write this below. I step out of the darkness and carry the light for those who come after me. And if this feels true, share this video now. Because somewhere out there, someone may be waiting for you to speak your truth, so they too can be freed from a silence that has lasted generations. You are not just changing your story, you are rewriting the destiny of an entire bloodline. And if today is the first time you've ever dared to speak what you've always buried, keep your torch burning. Because the world doesn't need more souls trained to stay silent. The world needs you, a soul brave enough to live fully, so the sacred may finally be restored.